So I picked up Heaven's Dust on sale, not expecting a whole lot. It looked like a very simple horror action game with an emphasis on puzzles and combat, and that's exactly what it is. You get dropped into a mansion-looking place, and your first task is to find a way out of the room you're in. You find documents all over the place, as well as items, and you're immediately struck with the hardest enemy in the game, inventory management. I know this is influenced heavily by games like Resident Evil, but 6 inventory slots? Damn, that's rough. Well, get ready to run back to your storage box constantly, because your weapon and ammo take up 2 of those slots, and you're going to be picking up a lot of stuff. Not to mention that a lot of items get reused at some point. I'm looking at you, valve handle and battery. So either you need to have them in your box, on your person, or have a good idea of where you left them last, because you'll be coming back for them a lot. The main puzzle you'll run into is finding documents that contain hints to door codes, which is usually a 3-digit number and either is explicitly shown to you or worked out through the environment. There are a few puzzles that do take a fair bit of working out, but for the most part it's just travel here, put item there, get item to put somewhere else to progress. The combat is pretty straightforward. You lock onto a target and fire at them until they're dead. Well, dead-er. Sometimes you'll achieve critical hits, which will speed things up, but typically after a few shots your target will go down. I wouldn't exactly call this a survival horror game because there's a fairly large emphasis on combat. You seem to have more than enough bullets to take down every enemy without really stressing about it. One interesting thing you'll find throughout the mansion are these vending machines. Zombies will sometimes drop tokens which you can exchange for various items such as gunpowder, map fragments, or even passive benefits such as increased critical chance. These enhancements work even when they're stored in a box, so it's worth getting them to increase your effectiveness in combat. Overall, I would say Heaven's Dust 1 is a competent effort, but it's very straight to the point and doesn't deviate too much from just combat and a boatload of small puzzles and backtracking. It's well put together, but it isn't anything incredibly special. If you see it for cheap, give it a shot. Oh, you didn't think we were done, did you? There's a sequel. Heaven's Dust 2 picks up right where the first game left off, and right off the bat you'll see things have changed quite a bit. There's a ton of improvements over the first game, both in combat and the puzzle solving. The environments have been improved a fair amount, and even the perspective has switched to a slightly more isometric view. Again, you start off in a closed-off area and need to work out how to progress, but this time around things are a little bit more interesting. The puzzles still suffer a bit from the here's a number, put it in the keypad problem, but some of them are genuinely pretty cool and take a lot of environmental awareness to work out. Combat is similar to the first game, but now you have the ability to lock onto enemy weak points if you hold your aim on them for a little bit of time, which allows you to get headshots and take enemies down in just a couple of shots. There's a wider weapon and enemy variety as well, so combat doesn't feel as one note. Several enemies even have certain weaknesses or strategies you need to employ to take them down effectively. For example, one dude may be covered in a bone shield, so you either need to attack his uncovered parts, or use something like a shotgun to break the shield, opening him up to a headshot from your handgun. This goes a long way to make the combat and ammunition management a lot more interesting this time around. Weapons can be upgraded with various modifications that you can find around the environment, and there's even special weapons that you can make by finding some weapon parts scattered throughout the environment. There's still a very large emphasis on fighting enemies though, so even though this game does the survival aspect a little bit more justice, I would still consider this more of an action horror game. The map system in this one is much improved and provides a lot more detail about what's going on in every area. You'll need it too, because this game is pretty big and you'll be traveling to the various areas a lot. Some things are introduced early on only to be touched on much later in the game, so you'll either have to remember key points or just wander around until you find out where you're going. Heaven's Dust 2 is a large step up from the first game in my opinion. While it's not without its flaws, I feel as though it gets a lot of things right and strikes a sweet spot between being an action game and having a lot of genuinely good puzzles and moments that harken back to the games it's obviously influenced by. I didn't expect much going into these games, but I came out pleasantly surprised. I definitely recommend them to someone looking to have some fun for an evening, but just know that they aren't without their flaws. There's some pacing issues and some pretty confusing aspects, but if you can get past that, there's a lot of fun to be had here. If I can nitpick about one thing, it's that there's not enough music to drive the mood. A lot of times you're just listening to ambient noise and footsteps. While it does fit the atmosphere, I feel as though some good background music would have elevated it further. Give these games a shot, you might like them.